Okay, let's get into it. If you're building or doing a major renovation in Connecticut, you know compliance is a big deal.
It really is.
We're diving deep into the 2022 State Building Code requirements today. That's the one based on the 2021 IECC, right? For Climate Zone 5A.
Exactly. Cold winters, humid summers, and yeah, the code lays it out.
So our mission here is pretty straightforward.
Hmm.
Give you the essential numbers, the things you have to know to pass inspection. Avoid those headaches.
And the simplest way, usually, is the prescriptive path.
Oh.
Just hit the targets they set.
Okay, so what's the biggest target? What's changed the most?
Well, the main thing people need to clock is attics and ceilings.
Yeah.
Big jump there. You now need a minimum of R60.
R60. Wow, that's up from R49 previously, right?
That's right. It's a significant boost. We're talking, maybe 18, 20 inches of blown-in insulation typically.
That is a serious thermal cap. Okay, what about walls? Always seems a bit more complex there.
It is, yeah, because you've got options. For above-grade walls, it's either R30 just in the cavity, or you can do R20 in the cavity, plus R5 of continuous insulation on the outside, usually, like rigid foam.
Right, that thermal break. And basements?
Basements are R15 continuous, so foam against the concrete typically, or R19 just in the wall cavity, like between studs.
Okay, those are the numbers. But you mentioned something critical, installation quality.
Yes, this is key. All of this insulation, all of it, has to be installed to what the code calls grade I quality.
Grade 1. Sounds technical. What does that mean practically, like when the inspector shows up?
It means basically perfect installation. No gaps between bats, no voids, no stuffing insulation around wires so it's compressed, no folds. It needs to fully fill the cavity and be installed neatly.
And if it's not? If it's sloppy?
If it's sloppy, say grade 3, the inspector can actually de-rate the R value.
What?
So even if you paid for R60 material, they might say, nope, the way it's installed, you're only getting R45 effective, and you fail.
Ouch. Okay, so installation is non-negotiable. But even perfect insulation doesn't work if the house leaks air like a sieve. That brings us to air sealing.
Absolutely crucial. Obviously, insulating without air sealing is like wearing a really warm winter coat but leaving it wide open.
Huh. Yeah, exactly. So what does the code demand for air sealing?
It demands a continuous air barrier. And proof, new homes must pass a blower door test.
The dreaded blower door test. What's the number you need to hit?
For residential, it's tough. 3 ACH 50 or less, that's air changes per hour when the house is pressurized to 50 pascals.
3. That's pretty tight. What does that feel like?
It means you have to be meticulous. Caulking, taping, sealing, every little penetration, every seam. If you fail, it's like having a small window open all the time, energy-wise.
Yikes. Okay. So for comparison, is commercial different?
Yeah, commercial uses a different metric, usually CFM per square foot of the envelope surface area at 75 pascals.
Yeah.
It's tighter in its own way, just measured differently. But for homes, it's that 3 ACH 50.
All right, so you've got high R values, grade I installation, and a tight envelope under 3 ACH 50. Now we need to talk moisture, especially in our climate zone.
Definitely. Zone 5A, cold and often humid. The absolute golden rule is never trap moisture. Every part of your wall, roof, foundation is a way to dry out.
So how do we manage that vapor?
In our zone, the code requires a Class 1 or Class 2 vapor retarder on the warm and winter side, so the interior side of the insulation.
Like the craft paper facing on fiberglass bats or polyethylene sheeting.
Exactly. Those are common Class 2 and Class I retarders, respectively. They stop warm, moist indoor air in winter from getting into that cold wall cavity where it could condense.
Okay. And what's the classic costly mistake you see with moisture, especially in basements?
Oh, easy. People finishing basements trying to save a buck by just stapling plastic sheeting, that poly, directly against the bare concrete foundation walls before they frame.
Why is that bad? Seems like a vapor barrier.
It is a vapor barrier, but concrete wicks moisture from the ground. You put poly against it, trap that moisture, and then you put wood studs and drywall in front. You're creating a perfect little mold terrarium. Rock City.
Ah, okay. So what's the right way?
Use rigid foam insulation like XPS or polyiso directly against the concrete, or closed-cell spray foam. Those act as insulation and the needed vapor control, and they handle moisture much better than bare poly.
Makes sense. Let's shift to practicalities. Can a homeowner DIY this stuff, or do you need pros?
Well, a homeowner can pull their own permit for their house, and basic stuff like air sealing with caulk, or maybe adding blown-in insulation to an attic, that's often doable for a savvy DIYer.
But
But things like installing spray foam that requires specialized equipment and safety gear, complex basement systems, major electrical involved with insulation work. You really need licensed professionals for that. And remember, even if you DIY, you still have to meet code and pass inspection.
All right. So what are the top, like, three boneheaded mistakes inspectors catch all the time that cost people?
Number one, definitely failing the blower door test because they didn't air seal properly before insulating. You can't easily fix leaks buried under R60 of insulation.
Okay, air seal first. What else?
Blocking soffit vents in the attic.
Hmm.
Happens all the time when adding lots of insulation like that R60. You block the intake vents, you kill attic ventilation. That leads to moisture buildup, mold, and ice dams in winter. Big problem.
Check those vents. Got it. One more.
Leaving foam plastics exposed,
Ah.
especially in basements or crawl spaces. Any rigid foam or spray foam, it has to be covered by a thermal barrier for fire safety. Usually that means half-inch drywall. Can't just leave it bare.
Okay, so wrapping up. The message seems to be, get your R values right, especially R60 in the attic, build tight, hit that 3 ACH 50, and manage moisture carefully, vapor retarder on the inside, no poly on concrete.
That's the core of it. But
Yeah.
here's a final thought. You can have the best R-value materials, you can pass the blower door test, but what really underpins the long-term performance and, frankly, proves compliance?
What's that?
The paperwork and the proof of that grade and installation. If the installer doesn't leave the official insulation certificate stating what R-value was installed and where, or if they don't leave those little depth rulers in the attic for blown in, the inspector can, and sometimes will, assume the worst. They might assume it's poor quality, grade 3, and make you prove otherwise, maybe even make you tear stuff out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the documentation is just as critical as the material.
It's the final piece. It shows the job was done right and meets the standard. Without that proof, your whole investment is kind of at risk. You need that certificate.